So you started writing in early 2020. When was it supposed to come out?
2021.
Okay.
Later in the year. And then it eventually ended up coming out early 2022.
So it wasn't super delayed. By a few months, perhaps?
By a few months, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are not somebody... So I think Remnants was your first book. And I think before that, you were not somebody who would call themselves a writer, right? Nor an interviewer, right? Because through this little song and dance show that I've got going, it's very different talking to people about a subject, right? People, especially who you don't know. And often, you have Chalo with me, it's a podcast, so they're doing something and we're going to talk about something that they're doing. You're talking to people about one amorphous topic, but generally one thing, the partition of India. But the people vary wildly, like, who they are, what their circumstances was, their age, demographic, everything. So you found in Remnants a sort of anchor, which was the objects, right? Do you think you're better? How was it difficult talking to people and finding a through line? Because you're not, again, talking to people as small talk. There is a purpose. This will become a book, right? So you, a person who is not a writer with several, this is like your first project, you have the objective that I'm going to talk to this person I do not know about a subject that I don't know how they'll react to. And then I have to filter that through my mind and put it into words that somebody will perhaps find engaging. How did that process vary from Remnants, your first book, to this, your second book, which is also sort of like a sequel to Remnants? How did that vary for you?
Well, so I think always interviewing people is complicated. It's always complicated. Sometimes when you know the subject matter is something heavy like Partition, it makes it even more complicated because you're wondering how to navigate that conversation always. Though I have to say that it's also an underlying thread. So you have that in common. And sometimes when you have this thing in common, there are aspects or emotions that perhaps don't need to be said out loud, they can be felt. Right? So in that sense, talking about Partition is both easy and hard because of the shared history that already exists. That being said, I think speaking to strangers actually may be a little easier than speaking to your family because you don't have that burden of family history. You don't have that, when you confess history, when you exhume history, you extract it, relationships change. Sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. You change the way that you love someone when you realize the history that you've inherited. I think with this book, In the Language of Remembering, because I was speaking to younger people, I thought it was going to be a lot easier. But in fact, I found it a lot harder than Remnants. A lot harder than Remnants because people were younger and because they were my age or along the same generation that I was. And I had not expected the conversations to be as visceral. When you're speaking to survivors, you have this distinct understanding that the past is very much the past and what we are speaking about has already happened and is confined to the past.
Right.
But when you're speaking to descendants and this past somehow has found a way to permeate into the present, it's found a way to continue on, not as obviously or evidently as something physical. It's not a physical wound. It's something very, it's something maybe buried inside or some sort of mental thing that carries on. It's a kind of invisible inheritance is what I'm trying to say. And when you speak to younger people and they talk about Partition and how they are trying to work through it, they are trying to not emulate the feelings of their ancestors because that's impossible. They can't feel the same pain or the same loss or the same anger even. But they're trying to create new relationships and situate their identity within this event that kind of changed borders and nationalities, and so I think what I wasn't expecting is the kind of visceral, vulnerable conversations that I received. And I did not expect to become so entangled in them. I did not expect to feel that the book is so autobiographical, because it is. And because I think sometimes people can say things that you have been trying to find the words to say.
Yeah.
Right. And so I notice this with a lot of my conversations. Maybe I'm going a little, maybe I'm moving too far ahead in the conversation, but I did feel that a lot of things that I was thinking about but didn't have words for.
Yeah.
But didn't even know if that was for sure something that I felt, it found utterance in other people's interviews.
Right.
So I didn't, I guess, making a very long and convoluted answer to your question, I didn't expect the interviews to be as intimate or urgent as they became.